Hello and welcome to Top Gear India. My name is Gavin Rodriguez and today we have with us the all-new Citroen e-C3. Now, we've already seen what the C3 is like. I'm not going to go over the styling as much because you can just check out the video over here that I did with the C3 and see whatever I have to talk about the dimensions. I will talk about a few tiny changes that Citroen has made with this car. So for starters, you've got the charging port right here in the front and you've got a green number plate. Apart from those two things, there isn't really much to differentiate. There's also a new all orange color scheme that could give it away, but apart from that, it looks exactly the same as the C3. Now, this is quite a highly anticipated car because everyone's been waiting for Citroen's first ever EV in India. And not only is this made in India, but it's also exported to international markets, which is pretty cool. Let's talk about the figures over here. It's powered by a 29.2 kilowatt hour battery, which makes about 56 bhp of power and 143 Newton meters of torque. Citroen claims that it can propel this car from 0 to 60 in about 6.8 seconds, and it has a top speed of about 107, something like that. Citroen also claims that the ARAI certified range is about 315, I would say, ideally. Now, real world figures, I'm still yet to see. I'm about to go drive my car. I'm waiting for my turn. But so far, I'll just bring you up to speed with what all you can see and what all you can notice and what all you can like. Like I said earlier, dimensionally, this car is the same. There's nothing really, but the ground clearance has gone down slightly. So if you can come over to the side over here and you can notice that, again, it's the same. These beautiful looking rims that you have over here. Now you see the earlier ground clearance was about 180 millimeters, but right here you can see the battery pack sticking down, which makes it about 170 millimeters. And it's also increased the floor size of the car by a bit, which from what I've seen so far is not really that bothersome. It doesn't really change the dimensions all that much, and all in all it looks like practically the same car, which is really nice that Citroen's been able to fill it into the same package. Now let's step inside and I'll tell you a bit more about what you have on the inside. Now, the inside of the e-C3 hasn't changed at all, but tiny changes. Like for example, now you have a nice big 10-inch screen over here for your multimedia interface. And what disappoints me is that the screen over here still hasn't changed. It's about the size of a cube, like the size of a cracker. It's not that big, and I wish that instead of putting 10 inches here, Citroen would have just put 2 more inches over here and made this a lot more usable, a lot better. So now you can see your battery percentage, your range. Those are the only additions, but apart from that, the car is the same. Nothing's really changed. Now, to talk about the dimensions, you see the floorboard has been raised slightly, but it's not exactly obstructed the overall headroom. The headroom is still just as good. Space in the cabin seems just as good. One thing that I did notice is that now you don't have the gear knob. You have this knob over here to play with. Whoops, it didn't like me playing with its knob, but you have a knob to play with over here. Let me talk about the back seat now. Now, with the driver's seat set to my driving position, you can see I've got plenty of knee space over here, more than enough headroom over here, and I would say that anyone that is around 6'2" or maybe even 6'3" would be just fine over here. Seat space is good, shoulder room is really nice. All in all, this car is quite nice. It's good for teenagers, it's good for families, it's a good overall package, and I really like that Citroen has managed to fit all of that without hampering the dimensions and the practicality of the car, which is a great plus from my side. Now, another way to tell that this is an electric vehicle, apart from the obvious green number plate, is that you've got a nice little E symbol in the back over here, and you've got one around the front fender. So let's talk about the boot capacity. Now, Citroen has managed to keep the boot capacity the same. Okay, it's got a mind of its own. Citroen has managed to keep the boot capacity the same. You've got a nice little charger over here. You've got a full-size spare wheel, a 15-inch spare wheel, and the overall boot capacity still remains 315 liters, which is more than sufficient and hasn't changed. And again, quite commendable for Citroen to manage to keep all the practicality bits intact. Alright, now driving impressions of the e-C3. Put your foot down and you can hear the motor working in the background, but apart from that, the car remains quite quiet. There is a fair bit of tire noise coming out from the inside of the from the outside of the car, but to be fair, I am driving at about 80 kilometers per hour right now. If I turn on the air conditioning, again, the air conditioning is on the louder side, but I don't know if it sounds louder to me because there is no engine noise to cover up for it, or if it's because the car is just that silent that I can hear the air conditioning going. Now, one thing that I'd like to mention before I do anything is that you have to remember that this car is not nearly as powerful as its petrol counterpart. Another thing is that it's gained some weight. It's about 300, almost 400 kilos heavier than its petrol counterpart. So you notice those things when you're driving the car. So if I put my foot down, it doesn't accelerate with the same amount of thrust that you would want. And I'm on a closed track over here, so I can test this car at top speed, which is locked at 107 kmph. So no matter what you do, no matter how much road you've got left, it just won't cross 107. And I think for most of us, 107 is more than sufficient. I don't see us ever exceeding. Most expressways are locked to 100 kilometers per hour. So going above that speed doesn't really make sense. And for something like this, which is primarily meant to be inside the city and maybe take a few trips outside of it, I think this does pretty well. The performance is, again, I would say it's adequate. It doesn't excite me. It doesn't blow me away. The regular petrol counterpart, the turbo, to me is a lot more exciting, the petrol turbo C3. But the electric one, yeah, it seems a lot more calmer, a lot more efficient. It seems a lot more prepared to do daily duties. But apart from that, again, this car is relatively the same. Nothing else has really changed on the inside. Yeah, the braking, however, the braking is it's sort of hampered the braking slightly now. This is running discs in the front and drums in the back, so you do notice it just a tad bit, but it's not a night and day difference per se, especially given the fact that you can't exceed 100 kilometers per hour anyway, so you won't really notice a big difference in braking. Now, one thing that I would like to tell you about this car is suspension and the way this car takes turns. Now, you have a noticeable amount of understeer, and that is obvious because the car has gained about 300 kilos or something like that. But now up ahead is coming a nice long sweeping turn. I'm at top speed. I'm doing 107 kilometers per hour, and now I'm going to continue taking the turn at 107 kilometers per hour. And let me tell you, this car remains utterly stable because of the added weight. Right now, there we go, I'm turning at 107, and you probably can't tell, but this car rides extremely stable. I'm using just one hand. I'm not even using two hands. And the stability of the suspension is really nice. It's compliant. Even though this road is fairly even, there's nothing uneven about it, so the suspension doesn't have to work as hard. But even around the turn, I'm not noticing as much body roll. It's fairly well contained. But given that this is not exactly an enthusiast package, I doubt most of you people are ever going to notice just the potential of the suspension. And I think Citroen has done a great job tuning the suspension to maintain the comfort of the car and still maintaining the handling balance to a certain degree. I mean, as far as you can possibly do that, right? So overall, the driving dynamics, they're good. They're great for a car that's going to commute largely. But if you're looking in this sector for something exciting, I don't think there's anything exciting in this segment per se. This is probably the most exciting package you can have in this segment at this battery capacity. So yeah, if you're seeking excitement, okay. All right, coming back. So another important thing worth mentioning is the range. Now, very important. The ARAI claimed range is about 320 kilometers, but I can tell you from a more real world usage that I've been driving this, and I've not been driving it at 40 kilometers per hour. I've been driving it closer to 80 kilometers per hour most of the time. So given that, given the air conditioning and everything, you're bound to see a range closer to about 200, 220, or if you drive it more sedately, I would say 250. But the 300 kilometer range is something that I don't think this car can achieve it. Maybe in a very controlled scenario, it could come close to it. But from what my experience has been, it's about 200, 250, somewhere between that. So keep that in mind if you're looking for an intercity vehicle. Alright, so after spending a good amount of time with the e-C3 on this track over here, I can tell you a few things that I have concluded. For starters, this to me isn't exactly the same enthusiast proposal that the regular C3 is. I'm talking about the C3 Turbo. When it comes to its commuting habits, I think this car makes a great commuter. But I wouldn't exactly look at it as the best intercity option, though it is capable of it. Maybe Mumbai-Pune runs, but I wouldn't really exceed myself to traveling more than 150 or 180 kilometers in a single stretch at best. So, great commuter, not the best highway trawler. The suspension on this car is really good to handle up broken city roads, and the practicality is still on point. And I still think that this is probably the best looking car in its segment. So, all in all, is the C3 the EV successor to the Turbo? From a practicality standpoint, yes. From an enthusiast standpoint, no. Prices for this car are yet to be announced, but Citroen tells us that we should be excited because they are going to be very competitive with their prices. So yeah, I guess we have that to look forward to. All things said and done, this is Gavin Rodriguez signing off.